What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia, coming to you on a Thursday. Today is June 10th. We're talking LAFC and LA Galaxy. We have two very special guests that I'm going to introduce. But before we get into that, a day before the Euro start, man, they're still in the international break, with both LA teams here. But there's rumors, we got Diego Rossi being linked to some teams in Europe. We're going to dive into that. But let me introduce the people here on my show. We got Kirk. Kirk, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, a pleasure, man. I've been talking to you, and I'm happy to have you on the podcast. And as always, we also got TotalLAGalaxy, aka Alex. Alex, how you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing good, Gio. You doing good?
I'm doing good, man. I wasn't gonna do a show, but then I wasn't gonna do a show today. But then I saw the news. I was like, you know what? Let's squeeze in a show. I reached out to Kirk. So, Kirk, I want to get it to you because I know many of our listeners don't really know who you are. Give us a little 5-minute background. How'd you become a supporter of LAFC?
Yeah, so I grew up in LA. I played a lot of soccer as a kid. I just never really clicked with the professional game until I was older and had already kind of moved away. So I kind of missed the boat on Galaxy, I feel. And I tried to get into MLS a couple times and, fell in love with the professional game more overseas first, and especially with the national team. And so I probably tried 2 or 3 times to follow MLS, and just it never stuck with me for whatever reason. And then when LAFC was announced, I was like, all right, I'm going to make a conscious decision. This is going to be the team, and we're going to stick it out. And here we are. So that's kind of how I got into following the team. It was more of a hometown thing after I'd already moved away. I was in the Marine Corps for a while. So in a lot of ways, I feel kind of homeless. Like I've just been all over the country. And this kind of tied me back to my childhood in a lot of ways.
That's awesome. And you're also host of the CounterPress podcast. Tell us how that got started.
So my co-host and I, Josh Cacho, at LAFC, Josh, we would just tweet at each other during games all the time. And eventually we started texting and stuff like that. And it was I talked to this guy all the time about what's going on during the game, what's going on after the games. And so we started, we just said, hey, let's have some conversations and record it. And we both are more tactically focused. And we kind of felt like there's a bit of a vacuum. There's a good show, Dale Black and Gold, but not everybody speaks Spanish. I do. So I would listen to their show all the time. I was like, this is a great show. And I wish it existed in English for people. So that was kind of, we saw a vacuum in English. And so that's what we did. We started the show, and here we are.
That's amazing, man, and congrats on that. And that's how usually conversation starts. And I know that's how me and Alex, Alex is a regular on the show now. We just always talk, soccer, what's going on, obviously with LA Galaxy and everything. But that's amazing, man. Power to you guys. And now you're here on the show, and now people can hear all about that. TotalLAGalaxy. I know yesterday was a press call with Sega Koulibaly. I said it right the first time.
Yeah, you did.
I keep wanting to say I knew a kid named with the Kubli. I knew a kid named Kubli, and that's what I keep saying. I keep trying to say for whatever reason. I don't know, but I said his name right. What were your thoughts on yesterday's press call?
Really interesting, actually. Him obviously saying that, one of the things that kind of brought him to LA was the Lakers, right? So that's always interesting to see, because, athletes all obviously have their sport to focus on, but, they can also get some time off and focus on something else, like, how we do here. And honestly, I'm really excited to have him on the team, another defender. Obviously, the Galaxy defense has been quite the topic of discussion over the last couple of years with how bad it's been and just how error prone it really has been over the last couple of years. So I'm interested to see how he gets plugged into the system. We're going to have some players be on international duty during this whole stretch during the Gold Cup and Copa America. So I think he'll get a decent amount of playing time.
Yeah. And I got a little ahead of myself, but I wanted to talk about yesterday. I went to yesterday's MLS AllStar game. It's coming to Los Angeles. It's going to be against Liga MX. I was there at the press event. It was nice. The commissioner Don Garver was there. The president, I don't know, the commissioner, whatever you want to call it, Liga MX was there. So it was a nice event. You had a lot of people there. But Kirk, give me your thoughts on the MLS and versus Liga MX All-Star Game.
I mean, I think it's good. It always seems a little bit weird to just bring in like whatever big European club. It seems like this is a step in the right direction in terms of let's get something a little bit more relevant to maybe the league or CONCACAF. I am a little bit suspect of the growing partnership between Liga MX and MLS. Like I said before, I'm not, I diehard LAFC, but when it comes to the league, I have a lot of questions. And there's a lot of, I guess you could just call them ethical concerns that I have with the league. And the idea of the two of them getting closer and closer and closer is not what I want to see. If anything, I want to see Mexico have a strong league like they already do. I want to see the US have one, and I'd love to see Canada have it. So in terms of relevancy, I think this is better. And I think you're probably going to get a better game because there's going to be more of a rivalry between everybody on the field. But I don't know. Sorry to be a downer, guys.
No downer. I mean, you're being honest. So what doubts do you have about, because obviously all the talk is about potential in the future. I don't see that happening now, but potential these two leagues merging together. That's the speculation, right? But what is your doubts with the league?
With MLS or with the potential for combining the two?
Both.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm for promotion relegation. I think that will help create smaller clubs in cities like mine in Flagstaff that are actually like relevant because there's the opportunity to do that. I think youth soccer will be better in the U.S. once promotion relegation is instituted, and you have clubs that are being paid solidarity payments and can transfer players and help fund their academies better. And I don't see any of that happening with the way that MLS continues to just kind of like consolidate more and more and more power at each division of the game here. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they would have this kind of power in Mexico. I think the Mexican league would be able to like hold its own against, Don Garber, I guess. But that's my main concern is just MLS consolidating more and more power. And instead of pushing more decisions down lower, it's just, hey, Chivas is a great team. Tigres is a great team. Club America is a great team, right? Let's involve them. And now you have, the LA teams, the New York teams, and 7 or 8 teams in Mexico that kind of run the show, and everybody else is just kind of left by the wayside.
Yeah. TotalGalaxy, let's get your thoughts. Obviously, this is a big announcement. It was supposed to happen last year, but obviously COVID happened. We expect, right, Chicharito is going to play. Carlos Vela, we're assuming Carlos Vela with the promo.
Sorry, that's my kids.
I know it's totally fine. What are your thoughts, TotalGalaxy?
Yeah, really. At first, I guess you could say I wasn't a big fan of it. I just posted on Twitter. I don't know. I just wasn't as hyped for this as I think some people were. But after a while, about thinking about it, I would say it did grow on me. It's a really interesting idea, and I like it. Just not only does it put MLS and the talent that is in the league on display, but also to Liga MX. Like I think all of us here can agree we want CONCACAF to not only be respected, but just also grow as people recognize it as like, hey, they play decent football here. All the Euro snobs that like to talk trash about MLS and all that stuff, really annoys me. But I really think this is a good opportunity. Obviously, it's going to be in LA, so I'm pretty hyped about that. I may or may not go into the match. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. But overall, I'm pretty excited about it. I love watching Liga MX and MLS clubs go at it in CONCACAF Champions League. That's probably one of my favorite times of the year when those teams go at it. I think it's really fun and really entertaining because you can tell MLS really wants to beat Liga MX really badly out there on the pitch. So overall, I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right. I think it's a good idea. I like what they're doing right now. I wish it would have happened last year, but it didn't. But now it's happening this year. And anytime, right, you have Liga MX or MLS teams, right, you're always going to want to compete. The tricky thing about this one is going to be on August 25th, right? So I believe that's a Wednesday. With it being August 25th, and then 3 days later, you'll have El Tráfico on August 28th. I wonder how serious they're really going to take this game, because obviously the big game of the season is going to be right 3 days later. So I think that's the only caveat, and how much, right, if you have a healthy Carlos Vela, if you have a healthy Chicharito, maybe they play the first 45 minutes and that's probably it, right? But you always want to win a game you play, but I think especially this magnitude, right, and you're going to be in LA, and there's going to be a packed house, but 3 days later with El Tráfico, I don't really see them going all out, unless if there was like a week in between or something like that, or if it was like now, like during a break like that, I think it would be a little bit more enticing. But Kirk, what are your thoughts on that, on the scheduling? I think you got you on mute.
Self-muted. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my kids out of this show.
Okay.
So I do think your concern is valid. The one thing I will say is, typically what we see with these all-star games is, your starters will play about half an hour. So I think, if you have Chicharito and Vela and assuming Rossi's still here at that point, if they're on the field, which you would assume they'd be involved, if they get 30 minutes 3 days before, they're probably still fit for El Tráfico a couple days later.
Yeah. And quickly, Tony Banuela's in the chat says this match is set up fair. Two sides who have a couple of days to practice with each other, opposed to a well-established club like Atletico Madrid. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair, because you got all-stars from both sides, right? So they're not going to know each other as well, but obviously, there's still going to be talent there. And I think the big thing, right, is we're finally going to see for potentially the last time, maybe Carlos Vela and Chicharito play with each other, because I think as far as I know, I think Carlos Vela has already closed the door on playing for the Mexican national team. Chicharito's situation still up in the air. We'll talk about that later. But the other thing in this is that Bob Bradley is the head coach, right? TotalGalaxy. Let me get your thoughts on Bob Bradley being the head coach. And I think this, my assumption goes on because of the year he had, not 2020 but 2019. Obviously, COVID happened, so he wasn't able to be the coach. So I think they're pushing everything back, and I think because of the season they had in 2019, he was going to be the all-star coach for 2020.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. Obviously LAFC aren't at the top right now of MLS. And I guess, because they are playing at Bank of California Stadium, I guess they kind of wanted to keep it locally and kind of limit the travel. So it makes sense to have Bob Bradley there. Honestly, I have no problem with him being the coach, really. Hopefully Chicharito or something picks up a thing or two from his tactics that he can use if they play in the playoffs. Always good to know the enemy. So personally, I have no problem, or I don't think there should be any problems with Bob Bradley being the manager of it. He's a well-established coach in U.S. soccer, so it's not like even though his team are kind of, being inconsistent right now, it's not like they're like consistently bottom of the table. So I think that a lot of the chatter that I saw online was like people were curious why he was a coach, but I think everything just got pushed back, and I think that's the reason why. Kirk, what are your thoughts?
I think it's good. I mean, we've seen Bob do lots of different things over his time in MLS with the men's national team. So, I mean, it's not just that he has to bring people in and play LAFC's way. I mean, who knows what they're going to do. I would assume it's just a matter of who they can get from each team and what that personnel looks like. Like if it's just kind of a standard 4-2-3-1 type of thing where they come in and do their best to combine. And I think that's the big thing is finding the combinations on the team that work well. So if you have Joseph Martinez and Chicharito there, like how do you fit them both as strikers or whatever it is?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be interesting, right? With so much talent, right? Joseph Martinez, we know what he's capable of. Obviously, we see Carlos Vela and Chicharito every week. So, I mean, I think it's going to be exciting. Now, I just wish it was in a different. It wasn't 3 days before they'll traffic. I think that's just the biggest thing. But I guess this is the only way they could have fit it. But I think there's definitely going to still be a packed house there. So for the Bank of California, so it's exciting. They made a big splash with it yesterday. So we'll see what happens, and how many people do decide. Because I know there's a lot, like you told Galaxy. There's a lot of Galaxy fans that may or may not want to go because the game's at back at California Stadium. So I think that may be the only caveat to some of the Galaxy fans. But nevertheless, it should still be an entertaining game. Next topic I want to talk about, just hit on briefly, the U.S. men's national team. They played Costa Rica yesterday. They won 4-0. I mean, they come back after just beating Mexico, like a couple of days, and then we got to see. I guess you could say some of the bench players, but I think one of the players that stood out to me was Daryl Dike. I only saw the first half because after I saw the first half, I was like, they're going to win this game. But Kirk, what were your thoughts on the U.S. men's national team?
So I'm not really totally on board with Greg Berhalter. Never have been. I think he was kind of rushed in there, but I did, to his credit, I said, look, if you win this final against Mexico, it's going to buy you some time. And in terms of so they come in and the tactics were terrible. They switched off of what they were doing on Sunday within about the first 10 minutes. But they ultimately get the win. So credit where it's due. And then they come out and they look really good against the Costa Rican team that doesn't really look like they want to be there. But like you said, some good performances. Daryl Dike's movement was really good. Mark McKenzie's able to find him on that goal a couple times. There's one where like they play a ball backwards to him and he just like kind of leaves it for Anthony Robinson. It's like there's some miscommunication there, but I think there's a lot of bright spots on that team. I was happy to see Tim Weah finally get a start. Musa was finally involved, and so you kind of see like this. I don't know if I really don't know what Greg is doing still in terms of roster selection, but what I assume is kind of a second team selection. They look good.
Yeah, no, it looks good. I think the bright spot was Yunus Musa. I've been wanting to see him play. I mean, he's just so explosive. He's so versatile, and I think for me, I don't know. I'm not the coach or anything, but I if he's not starting, I mean, he should definitely be playing a lot more. But TotalGalaxy, what were your thoughts?
I didn't really watch the game. I saw the highlights. But overall, just seeing some new faces out there after the game against Mexico is a good thing. Just like Kirk, I'm not sold on Greg Berhalter yet. I think he just bought himself just a little bit more time because Mexico, their performance against Mexico wasn't really that impressive. Didn't score a goal from open play. They got pretty, I don't want to say lucky, but they did well when it came to set pieces, and that was really helped them. Overall, though, like you guys mentioned, Daryl Dike, I'd like to see him. He's had a great season with, I think, Barnsley. I think that's the team he was in with. And then, him coming back this summer with Orlando, I was going to elevate Orlando's chances at potentially winning MLS Cup. Brendan Aronson looked really good as well from what I saw. And overall, if this is team number 2, I'm pretty satisfied with it. They played really well against a CONCACAF team, and that's what they need to qualify the World Cup. As long as they qualify the World Cup, I think everybody will be pretty happy.
Yeah, obviously that is the biggest thing for the U.S. men's national team, right? It's gonna come down to that. So we'll see. I mean, they look good. There is questions, and I think there will be questions about Greg Berhalter. But if they keep getting results, I think that's the main thing, right? At the end of the day, is results. And to me, like the players really love him, and he definitely. We talked about this on Monday. He's definitely a player's coach, and it looks like all those guys definitely have his back. So we'll see what happens moving forward. All right, got a couple weeks until the Gold Cup starts. That's gonna be exciting. So there's gonna be a lot more different teams, and we'll see who actually breaks into that starting 11 for Greg Berhalter and the U.S. men's national team. Now I want to switch over to we talked about Sega Coulibaly. I want to talk about him a little bit. We talked about a little bit. Like the thing that impressed me about him was that he can speak English pretty well. One of the French players from the LA Galaxy that can actually speak pretty good. Didn't need a translator. But what do you think he can bring to this LA Galaxy?
I'm just start off with what you said. I think it's really good that he doesn't really need a translator. He at least understands. Samuel Granzier and Kevin Cabral still kind of do need their translators, and which is why I'm not really there to kind of like rate them yet, because they're still communicating with their teammates, still getting to know the game plan. But I'm glad that a defender who comes to a team that really needs defensive support, he doesn't need anything else. He can understand pretty well, and I think that's really good. Talking about him as a player, just watching some of his highlights, he's really good finding the ball. He's really good when it comes to just those one-on-one scenarios with the defender. I think he holds his ground really well. And that's something that the Galaxy are definitely going to be needing, especially when it comes to them getting kind of caught out on the counterattack. I think he'll be essential there too. And also too, the other French midfielder they have, Ryan Revelson, I think that's how you say his name. I'm excited for him too, because he looked like he'll be a beast as well once he comes into the midfield next to Jonathan Dos Santos.
Yeah, Kirk. Obviously, we're seeing Greg Vanny and guys getting a lot of players from France, right? And we know LAFC typically likes to go to South America. Looks like what are your thoughts on what you're seeing from the LA Galaxy?
I mean, I think Galaxy have always had a good model. They've had a couple down years, but they're always like the toast of the league, right? So nobody doubts their ability to bring in good talent. I think GBS was a silly hire. I wish they would have held on to him a little bit longer. But you can't get everything you want. But I mean, you always look at their teams and you're like, man, how is this team ever going to lose? So it's really just a matter of putting those pieces together. And Greg Vanny's shown the ability to do that. I mean, when you look at that Toronto squad and how they brought everybody in and how they were just at the depths of the league. And then they bring in, a handful of different players and he's able to fit them into the right positions. And they went on some pretty historic runs. So I mean, looking across town, it's one of those things where it's like, man, they got something good going on over there.
Yeah, and I think the thing that stands out for everybody, like last year with GBS, any player that was from Argentina was always linked to the LA Galaxy. Now it's seeming like every French player, that's going to be linked to an MLS. You can almost associate that to the LA Galaxy. I jokingly tweeted out I think about a month ago or so, whenever Champions League was going on. So I was like, when are the Mbappe to LA rumors going to start? But obviously I was joking, and obviously
probably in around 10 years. He's like what 20? He's like what 22 when he's 32, maybe 35. Who knows? But he's a good player. Hopefully he does when they come to the Galaxy.
He's a good player. He's probably not coming to Los Angeles maybe just yet, but definitely maybe Real Madrid or one of those big world club teams. Talking about transfers, LAFC Kirk have they have Brian Rodriguez. We know now that Almeria's a purchase cost, and it's not gonna go through because they didn't make it up to the first division, unfortunately, right? And I think for me, I wanted both sides. I wanted Brian Rodriguez to stay and with Almeria and move on because I think that's where he wanted to stay. Right now, he's playing with the national team. I haven't really kept up with the Uruguayan national team, but I know there's so much talent there. But what are your thoughts on Brian Rodriguez's stint with Almeria?
I mean, in terms of LAFC fans, I have some pretty unpopular opinions about Brian Rodriguez because he is an immense talent. He's still extremely raw. And what I mean by that is I think he just has to learn more about the game and how to fit in with players around him. Even at Peñarol, he wasn't a huge goal scorer. He was able to rack up a bunch of assists, and he looks good in highlights because he's got a couple different moves. He's got a good burst of speed that can get by people. But I think it's just a matter of putting together, some of those lessons that you learn playing with the team. So I personally want Rodriguez to stay with the team because you're going to lose Diego Rossi. I think the other unpopular opinion that I have is that they need to move him in this window. Because they need to prove to everybody that they can actually sell people on. Everybody just assumes, oh, well, they have great players, so of course they can sell them. And I think that's an underrated skill to be able to, one, let go of players, and two, find a good landing spot for them. And, obviously I don't want to jump the gun here, Gio, but the rumors come out today about Tottenham and Everton. And if you're able to say, look, we took Diego Rossi I think he was 19 when he signed with LAFC, and we were able to move him to the Premier League in 3 years. That does a ton of work for you on the recruiting trail. And the reason I bring that up right now is because Brian Rodriguez plays left wing. And I think part of the falling out with him in the club was because they probably said, hey, Rossi's going to be gone. And then COVID hits and you don't sell him, and Carlos gets injured. And so now you hold on to him longer. And if I had to put my finger on exactly what it was that made Rodriguez mad and want to leave, it was that he wasn't getting the playing time that he thought he was going to get. So I want to see him stay because I think Bob and the staff there can salvage this and can turn it into something. In 2 years down the road, we're talking about Rodriguez to Europe as well.
Yeah, I think there any relationship can be repaired. Right? Any relationship, right? I think the thing that upset a lot of people, I think a lot of the fans, that loved him and really wanted him, is just the way he forced his way out. I think that's just the thing. He's forced his way out, and obviously we saw the interview that came out. Obviously there was a little altercation he had with one of his teammates on Almeria, and then he went on public or on the Uruguayan media and stuff. And I think everybody everybody got to saw his immaturity, right? Some of the things that off the field that I think he may need to improve on, right? And that's just on himself. But I just think if he does those things when he comes back to LAFC, I don't know how long he'll potentially be there, because I don't think you want that, right? But I'm with you. You said you want him to come be here for a couple of years. Are you gonna? So you're welcoming him with open arms. You don't have any. Obviously, the talent's there, but I think what was missing with him with this time with LAFC was some of the finishing and some of the like the final third. Right? It was cleaning up. It was clean. We know he has speed. We know he has a lot of different things he can do, but I think it was just the finishing for him, whether it was a pass or at times dribbling too much, and I think that's what made some of the people upset at him.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for a DP, he's not goal dangerous. And you see him miss a couple sitters, and he's trying too hard. It looks like he's always just forcing. Like forever, we were just waiting for him to get his first goal. Like, well, maybe if he gets his first one, all the pressure will be off, and he'll just be able to score at will. And that didn't happen. He got a couple goals, like in MLS's back, and it still just wasn't all there. But I mean, he looked good in CCL, and in combination, he's always looked really good. It's just a matter of how do you fit him into the squad. I think another part of the problem was you're playing him again out of position. Like I said, he's on the right wing, and he plays for the Uruguay national team all the time on the left wing. So for me, that's the sign right there. Like if this kid looks good for them and not for us, it's because he's out of position, and it's because you're trying to fit three wingers with Rossi, Vela, and Rodriguez onto the field at one time. So I think if Rodriguez if he's going to succeed at LAFC, it has to be once Rossi moves on, because Rossi's too good on the left wing to sit him, right? You can't move Rossi just to make room for Rodriguez. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. TotalGalaxy, when you guys would go up against obviously LAFC last season, and you would see Brian Rodriguez, obviously one of the DPs, but at times it was challenging for him. What were your thoughts on B-Rod?
I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, I was like, all right, this guy is pretty good. He's got good dribbling skills, got good movement with the ball and can tow with defenders. But then after a while, I was like, oh, it's fine. He's not going to do anything. He's just going to lose his dribbling here and there, And that was really the thing with every time the Galaxy and LAFC would play, right? When Brian Rodriguez would start, I would know that, yeah, he'll get by defenders. He'll put a move here and there. But just his finishing that I observed during the games, and because I do watch a couple of LAFC games, obviously, most notably before they play the Galaxy, just to do a little scattering report, on what I should expect from them. And that's the trend that I always see with Rodriguez is like, you're doing good, helping the team, I guess, transition from that midfield to attack. But once you get to the attack, you can't really finish, nor are you creating that many chances for the other team, Obviously, him being loaned out to the second division of Spain, I haven't been paying attention to that. But obviously hearing the news about, him getting into altercations with a teammate, getting on Uruguayan media and kind of really just, I guess, throwing a tantrum a bit, if I were to say, because it looked really immature from a football player to really just go there and say you want to go home, when that's where you're at right now is where a lot of other Uruguayan players who are in your league at your home want to be, That's something I really wasn't expecting. I really don't know how this situation gets resolved with LAFC. I think, like Kirk said, moving on from Rossi, I think is probably the best idea, Maybe use that DP slot for a actual number 9 that the team's desperately missing. But if the relationships can be fixed, we all know that's possible, right? If those can be fixed, and you can kind of get a clean start per se for Rossi at LAFC once he comes back from his loan, then I think maybe for Rodriguez, then maybe I think you can kind of see some progress happening with Brian.
Yeah, let's talk about this first before we get into Diego Rossi. I know we touched on it a little bit, right? Yeah, to your point, Kirk. Right, he plays on the left wing, right? Let's just say Rossi moves on wherever he goes, right? Here in a couple weeks, right? And you play Brian Rodriguez on the left. Well, let's put it this way: even with his struggles at Almeria, which he wasn't necessarily starting, does Bob Bradley right away put him as a starter, or do you come up, bring him off the bench, right? Like, what do the rest of the guys have to say to that, right? Like, what does Corey Barrett have to say, right? Corey Barrett, I think he's looked the best. Obviously, Brian Rodriguez is going to be making the most money. He's a DP player. I'm not overlooking that, but to your point, it's like, does he start right away? Does he come off the bench? Does he have to earn Bob Bradley's trust? Because I don't think that relationship is as strong as you would want it to be with one of your DPs, right? And what does Carlos Vela also think, right? Does Carlos Vela understand Brian Rodriguez's side? Does Carlos Vela understand Bob Bradley's side, right? But at the end of the day, like, if Rossi leaves, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure for Brian Rodriguez, coming in, and if he doesn't produce right away, that pressure can mount potentially, or he could surprise us and he can, blossom. To your point, but what are your thoughts, Kirk?
So Bob doesn't have any problem benching DPs. I mean, we saw the Andre Horta saga, right? And I mean, he barely played at all. And when he did play, he was just giving assists to Galaxy strikers, right? So Bob doesn't. I don't think he has any problem saying, "Hey, man, you got to earn your spot back." What I will say is, LAFC is a lot thinner than I think they've ever been at the forward position. Once you get past Vela and Rossi, there's Corey Barrett is there. I think ideally in MLS, you want him to be the first guy off the bench for you. With some fresh legs that can run at a tired defense. But, I mean, Corey Barrett's not going to scare anybody in this league. Like, if you run him out as a number 9, and like nobody's really sweating bullets the week leading up to that game. So I don't think it would take much for him to win his spot back, other than coming back in and training hard, because once he's on the field, you're going to see things that Corey Barrett can't do, right? But it's like you said, it's a matter of attitude. Can he fix those immaturity issues? Is he fighting players here? He's not covered himself in glory on or off the field, really at all. So I think it will take some time for him to work back in. But I think if you do give him a clean slate, he can earn his way back in and come good on his talent.
Yeah, because I think, right, when you're losing Diego Rossi, right, you even mentioned like Corey Barrett is not necessarily gonna, right, be as big as threatening as Diego Rossi or Carlos Vela. We understand that, but like, people could say the same thing about Brian Rodriguez. You know what I'm saying? You could literally say the same thing about Brian Rodriguez, even though he's a DP, even though he gets paid more by LAFC than Corey Barrett. But I could literally say the same thing. Right, but I think that's gonna be the tricky thing for LAFC when you look at this, and Bob Bradley's like, the biggest question I have for Brian Rodriguez is like, you said you don't want to be here, and you said you want to go back to your home country. So when a player mentally checks out and doesn't say that he'd rather go to Peñarol and doesn't ever mention LAFC, my mind says like, are we gonna see part 2 of this again, or are we going to see a different Brian Rodriguez and just completely blossom like everybody else expected to? That's the biggest thing, is like, where is he? Where, obviously, none of us know this, but like, where is he at mentally, right? Because we know he forced his way out, and it doesn't, to me, I still don't get the sense that he wants to come back here, right? And we don't know what could happen after Copa America ends, because that's when where I expect he's going to come back, right? Or he could be, he could pull apart too, but I don't think he has any leverage at this point, like he did initially. And when a player makes a trade request, and now I think he's gonna have to humble himself and prove like, yeah, he's young and stuff, but he may not be going back to Penarol. He's gonna go back to LAFC, which some people may be upset with them and the fans. But TotalLAGalaxy, let me get your thoughts. If a player did that, right? Let's say if Brian Rodriguez played for the LA Galaxy, would you welcome him with open arms?
Like if he just came straight from LAFC to LA Galaxy?
No. Like he left. He forced his way out of LAFC, and now he's coming back because unfortunately he wasn't able to make it out in Europe. Would you welcome back? Would you welcome a player like that back, or would you have more questions?
I guess I would say I would have questions, right? Because obviously, he had a lot of hype to him, and that's kind of been a recurrent theme with the Galaxy for those couple of years. Gio dos Santos, when he was young, he had a lot of hype coming out of him. He was with La Masia in Barcelona, and then when he came to the Galaxy, didn't really accumulate too much. Had a couple of moments, but not really. And that's honestly what I can kind of compare it to, I guess. If Brian Rodriguez were to come to the Galaxy, a player with a lot of hype, who wasn't able to work it out, is really similar to Gio dos Santos, and I feel like those two wouldn't produce, just like Gio dos Santos didn't really produce with the Galaxy. I feel like Brian Rodriguez wouldn't either.
Kirk, your thoughts on how the fan base and the rest of the crew will welcome him?
I think it's going to be tough. Sorry, my mic just got really loud. I'm not sure why the gain went up like that.
It's all good.
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, he did burn bridges, and he made people really angry. And I mean, I don't fault anybody for saying, "Hey, we really don't want him here anymore because he doesn't want to be with us." So it's going to take time, and he's going to have to, when he steps onto that field, he's going to have to look like not only has he improved his game, but like he also wants to wear that crest and to represent the team and the city as well. So if it were me, if I was Brian Rodriguez's agent, I would be having some big boy conversations and come to Jesus moments with him. Like, hey, you have got, like, you are the one that's screwing this up, and you have to fix it. Like, you can't be on TV talking about, I want to go back to Penarol. Please come get me. Because it's not only LAFC that sees that. This is going to follow him for the rest of his career, right? When the time does come for him to go back to Europe, those clubs are going to see that, and they're gonna know that there's like this black mark on his record, right? So it's going to be a hurdle to overcome, and he's got to fix it now. I think you can get a do-over later in your career for, hey, I was just a dumb kid. I said some things I shouldn't have said in the media, but he's got to fix it right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think he definitely has to fix it, and I just want to know where he's at mentally, and right, if the opportunity, if he does come back, like, there's a lot of expectation. Hey, man, you didn't go out the right way. You didn't go out the best way. Now you need to come back and produce. We don't, right? If you're LAFC, LA fans, you can't produce. You can't act the same way you were, because I don't think that's a recipe for success. In the chat, Tony brings up a good point. He says he thinks he's too good for this league just because he gets called up for the national team. That's a fair point. That's a fair point, because obviously we know Uruguay, we know Cavani, we know all the big names, right? All the big names that they have, right? He's this young kid, right? He's made it into the national team, but he hasn't produced. And I think Tony has a point, because he hasn't shown it in the club level. Yes, he's shown it at times, with the Uruguayan national team, but he's not the type of threat, the type of winger that we see from other international Uruguayan players, right? And I think whether it's his agent in his ear talking to him, or a couple of things, I think at the end of the day, it's the results that have been lacking from Brian Rodriguez.
Can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Uruguay has an incredible national team program, right? Where they have kids from a young age, they have kids coming to camps. And so they have this incredible, like, from top to bottom, they know what they are. They play this 4-4-2 counterattacking style. And so Brian Rodriguez fits that left midfield, left wing position super well. And I think it's a good point. Like, he thinks he's too good for the league because he plays this position so well for Uruguay, but that's kind of an outdated position. Who's playing that kind of winger nowadays, right? everybody that we see, it's all inverted wingers, to the point where like 2 striker systems are coming back where you just have 2 inverted wingers really pitching inside to start. So I think that's a really astute point. Like, he can't think that just because I'm good with Uruguay, I'm going to be like, I should go to Atleti right now, because that's like the first 4-4-2 that comes to mind, right? Cholo's not going to play that kid. Are you crazy? Like, but where else does he go if that's the only position that he wants to play? So he's got to come and he's got to learn how to look like a real inverted winger or a traditional winger on the right side, in like a 4-3-3 or some other formation and system that guys are playing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a great point. You make a great statistical or analysis there on the how, that left winger or that midfield, you have to be so much more versatile, so much more. And he can too, because he has his speed. But like, I think it really comes up to in the timeline. G Money says, just show Rodriguez all the tweets on his timeline. He'll have plenty of motivation. I mean, definitely either a lot of motivation, a lot of things that may frustrate him. He doesn't necessarily want to read. Tony says he's not good enough for MLS or La Liga second division. I mean, there's some criticism there, but I mean, it's all falling on him. I have no doubt that he could come back. And it was a funny thing. I was talking to someone close to the team yesterday at this MLS event, and they were like, don't be surprised if he comes back and surprise you. And I was like, well, he already did the first time around, but it was a different type of surprise, And by no means, I have been very critical because of where he comes. He comes from Uruguay and the national team. Any kid that grew up watching, South American teams know what these teams bring, right? Me watching the Mexican national team face Uruguay, like I know what's supposed to come. And he hasn't shown that, but I know he can turn it around. But I think it's going to come down to his mindset and flipping the switch, because he has to put the team first. And I don't think we saw that necessarily with LAFC. I don't think we saw him put the team first, and I think that's one of the things he's lacked. But moving on. TotalGalaxy, let's talk about this. Obviously, Diego Rossi, is being linked to Everton. What are your thoughts on that? Do you want to see Diego Rossi stay because you guys face him, or do you want to not see him score goals against the Galaxy?
I do want to see him like go into Europe, not because I'm scared of him or anything, but I just want to see MLS as a general kind of just become that exporter of talent. We saw that with Miguel Almiron a couple of years ago, and I think Diego Rossi can't get that next big Premier League move like Almiron did. He was in Newcastle. He's still with Newcastle still. I really think that Rossi can, if he goes to Tottenham right now, because Harry Kane wants to get out of Tottenham. So I think maybe he can make a name for himself there with Tottenham, even though they haven't won any trophies, just like LAFC. I just think that he can really get a mark there in England for a bit, And just overall, too, I want MLS to get a lot more attention worldwide in general. I want this league to grow. I want this league to succeed, MLS has been very influential in this part of the world, A lot of players from South America really want to come to MLS. And they've attracted a couple of big players. The new DP for Cincinnati, he's a Brazilian. I forgot his name, but he was scoring goals. He looked like he was going to go to Europe. He was doing so well in Copa Libertadores. I really don't know why he chose FC Cincinnati, but I guess, if he thinks that this could be somewhere to leapfrog him into Europe, then I think that's a good sign for the league and for players that are interested in coming to MLS, knowing that they can get a big transfer to Europe.
Yeah, no, it's going to make it interesting, right? Kirk, let's dive into this, right? Diego Rossi, I like to your point, I know you talked about it earlier. I think this is the time to strike for LAFC, and right, Everton, Tottenham. That's what I saw. The type of team I saw for Diego Rossi were these type of teams, right? I didn't see anything less. I didn't see anything more, which you potentially could get there. But I think these are the right type of teams, and I'm glad this has come. Give me your thoughts on this whole situation.
Yeah, I think LAFC being able to land a player in the Premier League would be immense, not only for LAFC, but like Alex was talking about, this is a big thing for MLS, right? Where you, like you said, you have Miguel Almiron who was able to make it to Newcastle, but if Diego Rossi lands in a top 6 club in the EPL, like that is a huge move. And like, you better, if you don't like LAFC, which is everybody, you better, sorry, my kids are still just yelling in the background. You better be ready, because there's going to be some serious MLS Kool-Aid being shoved down everybody's throats when and if Diego Rossi goes to Tottenham, especially because, again, the Big Six in the Premier League, but even Everton, like, you're going to hear about it all the time from the league, and kind of like the state media, as Josh and I call them, like the extra time and all that stuff. But I do think it's a good move, and like I said, in terms of proving to people, I think it puts Brian Rodriguez in his place. Like, hey man, just if you just do what we ask you to do, like Diego did, we can land you in the Premier League. So just shut up and do your work, right? Or when you go back down to Uruguay to find the next DP, which I assume is what they're doing, right? Either there or Colombia. So this would be huge for JT. I think for John Thorrington, that is. I also think like LAFC fans are expecting a lot from John Thorrington in terms of a third DP, and I don't think he's going to go out and sign a big money DP again until he can go to his bosses and say, "Hey, I bought this kid for $1.5 million and I sold him for $15 million. So time to get out the checkbook because I'm going to go do it again."
Amen. I'm with you on that. And then to your point earlier, this is if you're LAFC, right? And I was talking to another person that was close to the team like a couple of weeks ago, I said about a month ago. We're talking to Tuesta, we're talking, and Diego Rossi came up, and they're like, they've mentioned Diego Rossi, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But now, like, thinking back to the conversation, I think LAFC had this plan all along, to your point, right? Because they knew I think everybody kind of knew in the back of the mind that the Brian Rodriguez situation, he may come back from Almeria, right? He may not stay with Almeria, let's put it that way. I don't know if he's going to come back. We don't know for sure he's going to come back, but we knew that, it was more that he may not stay with Almeria because of everything happened, right, with the fiasco. But to your point that, if they sell, Rossi, I think that, what was it, the Telegraph, I think is the news outlet that reported it was 10 million pounds, which comes out to like 14.5. I don't know. Don't quote me on the American dollars or whatever, but it was more than $14 million. And that is the right way to do it. And that shows not just that, like you said, just the MLS, but I have no doubt that Diego Rossi can be effective in the Premier League. He can impact the game. I don't know if he's going to be able to score as many goals as he did. He may or may not, right? But he has the type of talent that he's going to be able to impact, whether it's Everton, Tottenham, or any other team in the Premier League. He's going to be able to help a team out, and he's going to be able to fight for a starting job right away. I believe in Diego Rossi, that he can do that right away, right? Give him a couple games or whatever, he can fight for a starting spot in those type of teams. And to the next point, it shows Brian Rodriguez that, you try to do it your way. It didn't work out. We told you this is a route. And look at Diego Rossi. Just because he's on the national team and he doesn't get the limelight like he should be getting, right? And I think this is also going to help Diego Rossi break into the Uruguay national team, because he's been shunned because he plays in the MLS and he's killing the MLS. I think it's gonna show some of the Uruguayan people that are kind of doubters. I think the coach doesn't really believe. I don't know if for a fact, but I think the Uruguayan coach doesn't really see the MLS as a strong league. But I think, if Diego Rossi makes that leap, not only does it show Brian Rodriguez, most importantly, I think it will also get Brian Rodriguez to buy into the system. Like, look, dude, we gave you a shot. We let you do it your way. You messed up. Come back. This is how you got to do it. Listen to us. And if you want to go back to Spain, or if you want to go to the Premier League, this is the way to do it. But you got to kill it first in the MLS, because people are really looking at the MLS. And they're overlooking at you. They're overlooking at you because you haven't been able to produce in MLS. Yeah, you're on the team, but clubs in Europe are, with everything going on with the U.S. men's national team, they know the power of the MLS, right? And that's why you're seeing these teams being linked, right? And Bob Bradley being linked over there. But TotalLAGalaxy, give me your thoughts on that, on the situation. This being a good thing. You just mentioned, but like for the league, but also for Diego Rossi.
Yeah, just overall, you like Kirk mentioned, he's been a fan of LAFC for a while, right? You want to see players going out of your clubs and succeeding, it warms the cockles of your heart, really, when you really see somebody who who's been molded at your club, right, and then go out into the bigger ocean right there and still produce at a high level, I feel like this will be a really big deal for all of MLS. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of young South American prospects are going to be looking at this league a lot more, and that's where this league is trending, getting a lot of the younger Southern American players to kind of prove it and then get a move to Europe. I really think if this Diego Rossi move like goes by and he does really well at whatever club he lands in, I think we're going to see a lot more of Uruguayan, Brazilian, Colombian, Argentinian, Chilean, Bolivian, Venezuelan. I can name all of South America, but you get the deal, right? All of the young kids from those nations, are going to look at this league as a stepping stone for their future, and it's just good for the growth of U.S. soccer and the growth of MLS, really.
Yeah. G Money in the chat says Southampton or Brighton would be perfect for Rossi if he went to England. I mean, if he goes to the Premier team, I think wherever he goes, as long as he's in the Premier team and those type of teams, it's gonna be exciting. Gamer says, talk about the AllStar game. If you were here earlier, brother, we talked about it for like the first 20 minutes. Where were you at, man? We literally dove in. We talked about it, but Kirk, give me your thoughts. I know you talked about John Thornton being back in South America, because that's where they scout. That's where they're getting the talent. We know that, right? It's no secret, right? Let's say Diego Rossi goes. What type of position player should they get if he gets sold, right? What should they use that position, that DP on?
So I have another unpopular opinion in LAFC circles here, because I don't think LAFC need a DP striker to make it work. I think they have been incredibly dangerous in the past with TAM level strikers. Christian Ramirez missed a bunch of sitters, but the team never looked better than with him at the 9 in terms of like the spacing that he created. When Dio was on, he was always goal dangerous. And he was, some health issues on and off the field a little bit. And then BWP, like all these guys worked perfectly fine. And I think if it's me, I go and I sign another TAM level, which I know is kind of a misnomer in MLS because they've changed their funny money again. But that TAM level, Dio, BWP, Christian Ramirez striker in the middle. If Rodriguez is here, then he's now your DP winger. I think they need more help in the midfield. And I think just again looking across town at how well Jonah Dos Santos has been. Like how good of a signing he's been for them. We kind of talked about his brother and how he kind of flopped a little bit, but I think they need kind of a classic goal dangerous 8. I've been tweeting about the player profile that I like. It's never going to happen. I'm just throwing this out there. Ross Barkley is the mold that you want. Somebody who can score with both feet, who's dangerous in the middle. And I know everybody laughs. Oh, he sucks. He's no good. But like that's how you get people to MLS from Europe, right? Is they gotta go through like a tough, like a rough patch, and then that's when you snag them. But to me, they need an 8. I don't know who that is, so I just threw out the name Ross Barkley, and I've been talking a lot about that. But they need somebody who can create more quality chances. When I watch them this year, I see a team that doesn't know who is supposed to create. If it's Latif Blessing and Mark Anthony Kaye in the middle, you're obviously not getting enough in terms of chance creation. And if it's your fullbacks that are supposed to be doing the creating, you're definitely not getting enough from Diego Palacios and from Tristan Blackman. So somebody else has to step up. And to me, that's where you go splash the money on a really good number 8, because Bob doesn't really, he's not looking for a 10, right? That doesn't really fit the system as well. So again, TAM level 9, DP number 8, who can both create and finish and shuttle the ball, which I think is where that's where Mark Anthony Kaye struggles a little bit. Is I don't think he doesn't progress the ball forward enough. He's still looking to make from deep. I think in the long term, he's a 6. I'd love to see him drive more at defenses and then play a pass. Latif Blessing takes too long on the ball. Galaxy have punished him time and time again for trying to dance his way through pressure. So that's where I think they need the most help.
Yeah, I mean, you make an interesting point. I think you still hit on the thing that they need a number nine. But maybe it's not a DP, but yeah, I mean, you get creative. You get a TAM level, right? I know names have been thrown out. Who's MLS player from Toronto FC that played for the national team? What's that? Josie Altidore, right?
Josie, yeah.
That could potentially be a TAM, but I mean, that seems like could come out with a lot of baggage. To be honest, right? But yeah, because I know, talking to someone that they have been looking at number nines, but it gets interesting to see, right? And I'm with you. I don't think the midfield is as deep as we necessarily think about it.
And
When you
Atuesta's
see
gone in 6 months. In the winter, Atuesta's done. Like, they signed him to that one year deal, and he's either going to walk next year or you're going to sell him. And I'd hate to miss out on that like $7 to $10 million transfer fee.
Yeah. TotalLAGalaxy, let's get your thoughts on LAFC. He mentioned some things on the midfield. What do you think they should use that open DP spot if Diego Rossi has moved this summer?
Kirk's making some really good arguments for getting a midfielder. I haven't heard about Ross Barkley in a hot minute. I forgot that guy existed for a little bit. He makes a good point. A lot of LAFC fans have pointed out Mark Anthony Kaye. I guess he's kind of been a little bit of a scapegoat for their recent struggles. They're saying he's not as good on the ball and just attacking wise isn't really there. I think that's a really good idea, getting a number 8. I would say maybe a good number 9. You won't need like a Brian Rodriguez type of winger, like a striker that came to mind for me. Just overall looking through, and because I don't know about Chicha if he'll be here for the next 3 years, but someone who's caught my attention is Gabby Gol from Brazil. He's been doing really good in the Brazilian league, and someone who maybe in a couple years I really want the Galaxy to bring to MLS because I think he's a quality striker. He didn't do it in Europe, but I think, if he comes to MLS, he'll bring that same type of production that he's doing in Brazil currently to MLS. But overall, I really like enjoying listening to Kirk talking about, having this number 8 and number 8 DP, having a midfielder out there just being good, creating chances and, taking shots, not being afraid of that moment, and I'm really interested in that debate. And I like the arguments he's making. I think that's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
LAFC obviously haven't had, star strikers, throughout their time as a club, and honestly it really hasn't hurt them. You can't really say that the striker of LAFC was holding the team back because you had Vela and you had Rossi there. But I think really having another dynamic midfielder is really going to open up the spaces for those attackers and that TAM level type striker, whoever comes in for that position for LAFC.
Can I say something about Kaye real quick there?
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to get into it. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think what Alex said about him kind of being the scapegoat, maybe that was you, Gio. Sorry, I'm not sure.
No, that was Alex. That was Alex. But before you get to that, you lose as a team, you win as a team. I don't think all of LAFC's issues are because of Kaye. I think his passing has not been as sharp as it should be if this was a championship team, right? As a championship aspirations team. That's the biggest thing. I know Kaye, he's a great person, a great individual, but when you look at the film, the passing just hasn't been as sharp. And I know people will try to bring up stats and all these things, but when you look at certain things, when he gives up a goal, right? He's had 7. It's just inconsistencies going back to last season to CCL. I think that's just the thing that, you have some depth, but maybe not the depth that we thought they did have. But you have some depth to rotate. And I think that's the only player that some of the fans that I've seen, right, and even myself, that he hasn't gone to the bench. And I just think he just needs to earn his spot back. I don't think they need to sell him or anything or get rid of him. I just think, certain mistakes certain mistakes have to be, you have to be responsible for certain mistakes, right? If you pass a ball and your passing has been consistent for 7 weeks, okay, look, let's let someone else up there. Let's get the competition, right? But Kirk, go ahead. I want to get your thoughts on Kaye.
So I do like. I don't like that he's being scapegoated, but I think the term scapegoat is it, right? He's the one where everybody, things are like the house is on fire at the bank right now. Like things are not good. I'll be the first to admit it, right? And everybody just immediately zeroes in on Kaye because they do see him playing aggressive balls and turning the ball over. And I think part of that is tactics. We had Joe Lowry on the show the other day, and he brought some data about like LAFC is playing much more direct. And when they turn over the ball, this is something you hear from Bob in press conferences as well. when they turn over the ball, they're looking to hit on the break immediately. So they're trying to play on these counterattacks much more than they have in the past. And I think so. You see K, who's active in the press, good at winning balls, and he picks up his head and is doing what he's told to do, which is pick up his head and find that pass. And I think teams have just caught up. 2 years ago, that midfield of Atuesta, Blessing, and K was unstoppable because they
took
would just
the league on
people.
storm, really.
Yeah. But people weren't ready for that kind of press in the midfield, right? And now they've caught up to that. So now you see teams playing 5 at the back, and they're closing down that space between the right back and the right center back more. They're sitting a midfielder right there. So Seattle's always played us really well because last year they were in this 4-2-3-1, and they'd use their 2 defensive midfielders to break up those passes from the midfield. And now they're at this 5-man back line where there is no space between where we used to hit that ball. And the Galaxy did it too. The Galaxy played us really well last month. So the book is out on how to stop us. And if you take away that through ball through the back line, then we're out of ideas. We don't know what to do. And you see K's tried to play a couple over the top, and he's done really well. There was I think, was it in the Galaxy game where there was a little chip ball over the top to Corey Baird, and Baird wasn't able to finish. So does K have to be better? Absolutely, because the way that this team is set up, somebody has to create, and it has to be either those 2 midfielders, Blessing and K, or the 2 fullbacks, or all 4 of them. And I think he is capable of doing it long term. Again, I see him as a 6 because of his defensive presence, his work rate, and especially his ability to hit those passes most of the time. So when they've played a 3-5-2, I think that's when K's looked the best this year. And I think it's because he's got a little bit more time and space. He sees the field better. And I think it's just kind of unfair to ask him to do this quick counterattacking, these quick hitting counterattacks, because it's just not in his game. So
wait, can
anyway,
I float an idea real
for
quick?
a while there.
Can I float an idea real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Obviously, with the transfer window being open, right, and then I feel like a player that would really kind of help, and what Kirk's describing, right, what LAFC need would be Rodolfo Pizarro, who isn't getting any playing time at Inter Miami.
I've thought about that, but
he isn't getting any playing time at Inter Miami. You can come to LA, which is a big market, just like Miami. Has Mexican roots. I feel like if LAFC could pull off something like getting Pizarro, I think that team's even more complete, and it's even more of a championship level team, no matter where they are in the standings at the moment. I think if they can get a player that is good in the attack, can create these chances, makes good movements, it's inside the box as well, times their runs really well, can get really creative in its passes. I think that opens up the door a lot more for LAFC than if they were to get a DP number 9. Just an idea I want to throw out there.
I've thought about that, to be honest. I know it's upset a lot of people, but I think he's being linked to Chivas or Monterrey, so I don't really see it. But if you can squeeze it by, I mean, you essentially have maybe 2 number 10s with him and maybe Carlos Vela, or he plays out on the wing, right? But it could be interesting. But Kirk, I want to get your thoughts, because Isaiah Paskin says thoughts on Cifuentes, because this is the biggest thing, right? Like, I'm with you. I know people are very upset with Mark Anthony K, but I think he just has, like, to your point, he just has to be better. But what we talked about earlier, right? You mentioned it, right? Bob Bradley has no problem sitting DPs, but it doesn't seem that it's been the same thing with Mark Anthony Kane. I think that's what's upset some people. Some of the fan base of what I've seen on that, and I was a little, following the team so close, I was a little surprised that Mark didn't get subbed out right after that. And so I think, what was it? Someone who was on the show, didn't necessarily call Mark out for that pass or whatever. And I think when fans can kind of sense that, the speculation is that Bob Bradley and Mark Anthony, that people are saying that they're really close, so that's his favorite player, right? Those are the things I'm saying. I don't know that to be true, but I think when fans sense that, the players can also sense something like that, right? And when you make a mistake that critical and you don't get reprimanded by getting subbed out, I think that may mess some of the chemistry within some players, because, hey, I make one mistake or 2, I'm out, right? We saw, what's his name, that Marco Fafan, he didn't take a shot, he was subbed out right away.
Janela is another great example.
Janela,
right there, like he had that terrible challenge in CCL, and we haven't seen him since.
and I think just the consistency is not the same. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what I notice, and I think that's what I'm picking up from some of the fans. And maybe so if we can pick it up, you got to know that players somehow have to feel the same way. But what are your thoughts on that? I want to just say, and then Jose Cifuentes.
Yeah. So I mean, a few more things on Mark Anthony Kaye. This is a guy who, in terms of MLS, he's going to give you above average production most of the time, right? So and he's on a super team friendly contract. So that's the kind of stuff in a salary cap league where if you have a Mark Anthony Kaye, and I mean, if you just take that whole midfield, right, from 2 years ago, Mark Anthony Kaye, Atuesta, and Blessing were all on super small contracts and just kind of running through the league. So you're able to spend money elsewhere and put better pieces around them. So in terms of favoritism, it's quite possible. Josh and I have heard from a couple different people close to players that Bob will play favorite sometimes, and from what we understand, Mohamed El Munir was kind of like pushed out, even though he was training really well, and that's kind of why he left. I kind of suspect something similar with Dio as well, where they were always trying to get the 3 DPs on the field, even though Dio was the one who always looked the best. So, I mean, I don't doubt that that's a possibility. But, I mean, the real question is, who do you bring in to play in Kay's spot? Because you need another number 8 right there. So, Atuesta is a 6, Kay is an 8, and Latif plays this anti-10 role, right, where it's more of a pressing, like the old Fellaini role at Man U, right, where you're just like, he's just going and blowing up plays defensively, and you're not always going to get offensive production, but that's kind of the role. So I think that's Jose Cifuentes, right? Is that anti-10 who can create and combine a little bit more than Latif can, but I don't know who it is, if not Janela, to be honest with you, that comes in for Kaye.
Yeah, so I think I mean it makes it interesting. I think just I'm just more on the thing that someone else needs to get another shot, whether you put Latif Blessing or whatever. It's just the way I see the game, right? And I don't think to me, I don't think Mark, like, I know people are going ruthless on him, but I just think he just should earn a spot back. That's all. That's what I think.
I don't begrudge anybody that says like, hey, he needs to sit down. Like it's not good enough there, because again, there's several spots where I say the same thing, and I mean that's one of them, right? I feel like this
because
whole time
he'll have an amazing pass, and then I think when he gives it up, then you have like 1 step forward and then 2 steps back. It's the sense that I get, you know. But what are your thoughts at TotalLAGalaxy? Would you start Kaye? Would you give someone else an opportunity? Oh, I think we got you on mute. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, my microphone. Sorry. I'm like 50-50 with Mark Anthony Kaye, right? You know, the last time I saw him, he was getting nutmegged by Efrain Alvarez, so I don't really have that good of an opinion of him right now. But you know, last time I was on here with LAFC Live, we talked about switching Mark Anthony Kaye and Jonathan Dos Santos. And while I have been really, really, really critical of Jonathan Dos Santos over the past year, you know, I just think teams have figured out Mark Anthony Kaye, right? Like Kirk mentioned, you know, when this team first came out, you know, that midfield took the league by storm. Really, everybody was talking about, you have your Reles and Rossi's scoring goals, and then you also have your midfield clicking, doing all the hard work as well. And now the teams it's been like, what, 3 years since that inaugural season? Teams have figured out how to play. That core right there is still intact very much into that team. Teams know what to expect when they play LAFC now, you know. It's not that Mark Anthony Kaye's, I would say, quality has gone down. That's debatable, but I really think teams have figured out Bob Bradley and figured out how this midfield plays.
Yeah, but I would disagree at this point. I think they figured out the whole 4-3-3 system. I think just the inadvertent passes when it shouldn't happen, right? It's just been the trend, right? But nevertheless, I think you know, he shouldn't be the fall guy for LAFC, because it's the whole team, to be honest, when they lose like that. He's had right, the last memory people are gonna have, you know, during this break is that pass, and I think that's what upsets a lot of people when his name gets brought up. You know, but it's to me, it's like, I think you want to see more of the consistency of, hey, if a player makes this type of mistake and you bench him, I think it should be the whole way through. I'm not the coach. I'm not LAFC. But that's just how I think I would see it and I would do it, right? But we're just here to talk about that. G Money brought a great point. We'll finish this with this because we're over by 10 minutes. I just realized Janela is getting paid 543 and sitting on the bench. Try him for a game. I mean he has not played, making more than $500,000. I think that makes it tricky, and I think you got to throw someone in there. You know what I'm saying? Someone in there. And but what are your thoughts? Would you start K after this break? I know he's played some time with the national team. I know the competition hasn't been as strong, but would you start K, Kirk, after this international break?
I might give him one more run out. I mean, I've kind of pegged this 4-game homestand that they have as this is the do or die time, right? And they looked okay against Colorado. They
do you feel like it's the do or die time for the team or Bob Bradley or everybody in general?
I'm not on Team Bob out yet. But I think you have to make significant changes. If you come back from this international break and you still look disjointed, then you got to start talking about blowing up some spots on this roster and fixing things. To go back to, sorry, G Money's getting us again there.
He said this is his team to plan for. It's the same thing every single game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying, right? If there's no creativity from anybody behind the front three, then you're done because teams can park it and play right over the top of that midfield that we talked about as defending so well. So I might give K one more run out, see how it looks after, because again, you have two weeks here where you're in training trying to fix things. But the point about Janela is a good one. Janela's there. I see Janela as an 8. I know a lot of people see him as a 6 because that's where he played when he was with Montevideo Wanderers. But to me, he doesn't have the defensive presence to be a 6, and he's so clean in the passing game that's what LAFC needs. They need some kind of presence that's going to connect more passes further up the field. But give him one more run out and see what happens. And pretty soon the calls are going to be fast and furious for things to really change in a major way, especially with the transfer window open and you've underperformed in this homestand.
Yeah, I mean, I think the transfer window officially just opened yesterday. So, in TotalLAGalaxy, Tony says that's nothing. We got a 800,000 player defender sitting on a bitch, and I think he's referring to Giancarlo Gonzalez. Yeah, Gonzalez, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess you could say both teams have kind of missed. Giancarlo Gonzalez did play in Costa Rica's friendly against the USA. I didn't get to watch it, so I can't really evaluate his performance. But
he got roasted by Daryl Dige a couple of times, but.
Yeah, that's not something I wanted to hear, but just didn't work out for him really in 2018, 2019. Just didn't work out. The teams really tried to rebuild that defense. The only pawn that's really been consistent has been Daniel Steres for the past couple of years, and we've seen the rise of Julian Araujo at that back line. Now you have Derek Williams, Sega Koulibaly, whoever gets put there. And then Villafania, we had Insua last year. The team's just trying to figure out a lot of things right now as well. We're doing pretty good, overachieving, but there's still tons of questions left. Obviously, Chicharito, because he's been kind of absent from a couple of games. How often is that going to happen? We haven't really fully evaluated Kevin Cabral yet. Samuel Granzier is still getting his feet wet in the MLS. The midfield's been moved around a lot, way too much, more than I'm comfortable with, really. Jonathan Dos Santos has had a really inconsistent partner. Hopefully when Ryan Revelson comes, he'll be the solid partner for Jonathan Dos Santos. And then the defense is a monster of its own, really, that, keeps having these problems. But overall, I think we're going to move on from Giancarlo Gonzalez during probably this transfer window. I think he's staying in MLS because he's getting his green card. So I think maybe a team like, FC Cincinnati, a team like that, that really has been struggling defensively. I think they could probably be like, hey, we'll pick this guy up.
Yeah, I can definitely see him if that makes sense. Him staying here. But that's gonna wrap it up, guys. We went way over. I didn't think we were gonna go, but it was. I mean, it was a great conversation. Kirk, thank you for being on. Love to have you on again. Let the people know where they can follow you and when they can listen to your podcast.
So Josh and I run the podcast called the CounterPress. You can find us at CounterPress_ on Twitter. Our Instagram game is terrible. I didn't even realize that until today when Gio was like, "Hey man, what's your Instagram handle?" I was like, "What are you talking about, man?"
Well, I was gonna tag because I usually tag people. Let people know like, hey, we're having. But hey, you have Twitter, so I tagged you on the Twitter.
Yeah. So we're much more active on Twitter. We do have a Substack, but if you go to our Twitter page again at CounterPress_, you can see all of our stuff there, articles or podcasts or whatever.
Nice. TotalLAGalaxy, let the folks know they can follow you.
So if you want to follow us, we cover the Galaxy news, everything, team news, and just overall what the players are doing as well. On our story, we'll post about what's going on with a couple of players. Just tag below at TotalLAGalaxy on Instagram and Twitter. You will get tons of information on the Galaxy, and you'll definitely be in the know what's going on with the club.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody in the chat that tuned in. Great questions from everybody. As always, we're going to switch back next week to Monday, Tuesday. I did a surprise Thursday. I wasn't going to do a show, but I was like, you know what? Might as well have a show. And as always, if you guys want to follow me, you can follow me at Gio Garcia LA on Twitter. For Kirk and Alex, this is Gio. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.